Alright, looks like we're going to be working with a slightly smaller camera space today. Not a problem, we still have plenty visible here to work with. So hello, welcome to the stream. Excited to have another game design session today. So for the last few weeks, we've been working starting from zero. As you can see, I have my blank notebook here. Coming up with a word or phrase to kick off our design session, anything from pewter to potato to star, I think was the one that we used for Star Academy University, or Star Academy Kindergarten. That was the design that we did last week, where we were a bunch of Starfleet, the kindergartners, so way before you even get to the college level or high school or wherever they're at. So going to start from zero and come up with a concept, work from there, work it into a idea for a game design, and get it to the point where we'll be able to leap off right there into prototyping. All right, this is my old stuff from last week. Start with a fresh page. All right, if anyone has anything that they want, any concept that they want us to start with today, let me know. Otherwise, I will come up with something out of the ether. And we're live. Perfect. Alright, so getting the first seed for your brainstorm is always interesting. You gotta be careful not to do anything too leading or too obvious. I like to think back on what I've been doing lately, anything fun that's happened. I have recently been working really hard to organize my design space. So I'm going to post a picture on Twitter. Lately I got a bunch of really cool boxes to store things in. I had a lot of board game bits that were floating around, so I got all my cubes, all my meeples into different spaces, and it's been really fun. Yeah, so how about we start off with the word organized. I also got a new light here, so even though our camera is a little small, we are having it be illuminated, so that's super fun and super cool. Alright, so we'll just start off with the word organize here. I like to talk a little bit about mind mapping in general every time I start. Hopefully you're not getting too tired of that. Mind mapping is a really cool brainstorming technique that makes it a little easier for you to come up with concepts organically. Traditional brainstorming is in list format, so things tend to lead in a linear fashion, whereas mind mapping is non-linear. So you're going to come up with ideas in all different directions that can spawn new ideas, and it's a great way to let things emerge, let ideas emerge a little more organically. So I have these organizing trays that I bought that hold little bits in there. I have, so maybe go here to containers. And this is getting a little bit into the science of board game organization. I got Ziploc bags and put all the little bits in. Bags has an S in it, so I put that in there. Ooh. How about like theories or systems? Yes. Thinking organizational systems. Everyone has their own little plan of how they put things together. There's the Marie Kondo system. This is Spark Joy. I'm gonna Marie K. Put that in there. Alphabetical, I guess. Alphabet. So if you're arranging things, I think I'll make this a double arrow, 2 labels. Make sure everything's coming in here. I have a label maker, which makes the organization even more fast and efficient. Come up here to containers. spawn off to boxes. An important thing looking at the mind mapping where it is now, when you look at the individual nodes, you don't always have to be coming back down here to organize. The cool thing about the technique is you take one of the arm nodes that's far from the center and you can go anywhere with that, so you don't need to worry too much about how it relates back. So for bags up here, for example, I can say reusable. And that makes me think of recycling. Recycling. Bags, candy. Again, one of the cool things about that technique doesn't have to be completely logical, just whatever is sparked in your brain at the time. Spark joy. Just spark sparklers like 4th of July, July 4th, celebrations and holidays. I think there's a lot of fun stuff that you can do with holidays game design wise. There's a lot of very rich culture and thematicness in holidays. If you're thinking about July 4th in particular and fireworks, there's some cool stuff that people have done with fireworks. For example, Hanabi is a really cool game. I haven't actually played that yet. Definitely am excited to try that out. It's a cool game, all about making fireworks displays. And holidays, from here we can go in a million directions. Halloween, Christmas. I'm just gonna draw a pumpkin for this. Pumpkin, Christmas tree with a star, Turkey Day. Alright, now maybe come back up here to boxes. Squares is what that inspires me to think about, and a grid. So we were talking in the beginning about mind mapping being non-linear, but now we've come up to this concept, box and grid. It's a very rigid, linear concept. Rigid, linear. Alright. So we have a few things going on here. We have sparks, sparklers, we have alphabet, rigid or grid. Don't want to tap into anything too solid at the moment. But what if we just start thinking about grids when we had alphabet? So letters. A, X is a letter. Z, E, U, I, K is a good letter. R, P, O. I know letters. B, C. Yeah, you're a cat. T, B, L. In this little box here. So we haven't landed on any specific game design concepts yet. A lot of the ideation before we get too wrapped up and like, oh, this is going to be the game. You don't have to decide that quickly what exactly the game is going to be. You can start out with your conceptualization, play around. I think play is a really important part of game design and a really important part of games in particular. A lot of times, especially if you're getting too wrapped up in the techniques of it, you get into this state of mind where I gotta make the game, I gotta test the game, I gotta break the game. What about just having fun and playing the game? You want to be on camera. Okay. Yeah, you can be on camera. Very good helper. Yeah, look. There, that's That's what you wanted, right? Can you see him? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's everything you ever wanted. Now you're a TV star. Now you're a superstar over here. All right. So seeing this grid of letters over here makes me think of crossword, potentially. But how about those word finds? Those old things. Well, I don't know if they're old. I mean, I'm sure there's as much a thing now, but I just remember being a kid and you had like word puzzle, word search. Those also always used to be really fun because you were looking for a specific word and you had all the words, the possibility words in front of you often, so you'd know the frame of what you were searching for, as opposed to a more freeform letters or word game where you would have to come up with stuff from scratch. Are you sorry yet? Do you regret yet? He likes to put his claws into my fancy office chair. Get some attention. He hates cuddling though. This is punishment for him right now. This is him being cuddle punished. Alright. How about you go away? Senior Watashi, hello. How's it going? Alright, so thinking a little bit about letters in a grid, word search, it's a potential idea that we could tap into. We also talked about recycling, sparks or sparklers, celebrating holidays or 4th of July. I remember having a friend, designer friend, tell me like, don't ever make a holiday game. I don't like to take advice like that too much to heart because, you know, if you're going to make a good game, it's going to be a good game, and you can make a really good game based on most themes, I would say. Don't quote me on that. But I think part of it from a marketing perspective would be like the frame of interest in a holiday is very, if you look at the plot, the interests in things around a holiday, it's very spiky, right? So for Christmas games, Christmas earlier and earlier, but maybe like September, October, and then January, right? There's not a ton of interest in Christmas games. But what if we take something, a concept like the 4th of July, even start a new mind map around that new concept. July 4th. And again, this doesn't mean that we have to make a game about July 4th in particular, just that we're using this as a seed to grow, for ideas to grow inside of our brain. So we talked a little bit about fireworks, food. Oh my gosh, so much good food. Corn, burgers and cake. I feel like all of these mind maps eventually come back to food because I like food. I like eating food. It's summer, so depending on where in the world you're living, it's often hot. Cotton candy. Although I guess I'm thinking July 4th, but it makes me think also of like a carnival or a fair. Because often in rural areas, like I used to live, there will be carnivals and fairs around that time of year. Fairs, and that's more food like cotton candy and rides. We do still have this idea of grid floating around from the earlier mind mapping that we were doing. Come on, camera, focus here. Focus. There we go. So grid, we don't have to stick with grid necessarily, but I kind of like, because we have a lot of exciting freeform things, and I like how grid fits into that. I'm in a very grid mood today. I don't know what exactly it is, but very linear mood. Talking about mapping out fireworks in this grid type pattern. Grid, hot, heat wave, ice cream, melting, right back to food, melt. Alright, so what do we have so far? Come back to our original start of the mind mapping. Started with organization, came up with this grid concept, kind of feeling something potentially grid-based before, dirtled around ideas of bags, recycling, trays, containers. The reason I came up with organized word is because I've been organizing my board game bits. I talked a little bit about alphabets, different systems. I like that. Systems for organizing things. So maybe we can delve into that a little bit. Right here, we're using a grid as a system to organize letters. We poked a little bit into the idea of July 4th, fireworks, different food. I think I'm getting hungry, so I'm focusing on the food theme. Maybe come back to that, but maybe just go a little more literal right now, right? Like boxes, box organization system. Trying to think what kinds of games there are that are about organizing things. Which is weird if you think about it, because a lot of games, especially in their setup, are at their heart about organizing things. You know, you're playing a game with a lot of bits, and you have all the different places where you're putting the bits. Like the money goes here, and the blue cubes go here, and the purple cubes go here. So I think that's very satisfying to a lot of people who tend to be into those kinds of games. But what if the game itself was a little more focused on the organizing? Or, I mean, this is a little meta, right? But what if it is a game about organizing your board game bits? You have, as a designer, right? Box grid, organized system. So organizing all your bits into different boxes as a board game designer. I have a lot of bits. I've broken down a lot of games that weren't playable anymore, so I've gotten cubes and meeples and discs and tokens and chits and pretty much everything that you can imagine. I don't know if the average normal person has so many little things lying around. Here's an idea though. And this is why I like talking about this and not getting too worried about locking something down, because it can be scary, right? To be here, especially to be live, to be on camera and say, I'm going to come up with ideas. I'm going to be creative right here. And what if I get stuck? What if I just don't have anything to think about or talk about, but just the act of communication, of drawing, of being open to those ideas helps to get more ideas coming in. I think that's really important if you want to do a live design session like this for your own, either in front of people on Twitch or just an activity at home. If you just let things happen and just play around with ideas and bits, you can come up with really cool stuff. So that was a long-winded way of saying I was talking about this idea of organizing bits as a designer, worrying about that potentially being a little too niche. Niche can be really great. There's a lot of cool niches out there that haven't been totally explored. But having said that, and talk about, you know, me as a designer, I have pieces for my job that I like to organize to make my job easier, but going one step out from that, all people have things and bits that they want to organize. We think of the junk drawer, and that's the thing that came into my mind as I was noodling on this idea of organizing bits. And that's a pretty niche thing. I like to think at this point, is there a game that has exactly done that I know about? I know there's a suitcase packing game. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some junk drawer organizing game out there. Don't know off the top of my head, so I'll have to look into that. But it's okay, especially in this very casual ideation, creative session, to come up with ideas of things that have already been done, is likely to evolve into something really cool and interesting and different from what else has been out there. So think about the junk drawer. Let's look at the kind of stuff that we have in here. You got your batteries, you got your paper clips, probably long pieces of string, you got a bunch of rubber bands, staples, receipts. What else we got in here? Probably a little pencil, like a little nub, pencil nub. Cool. So I have I was gonna say I have a few junk drawers. I wonder if you would classify my bits containers as junk drawers, but we're not gonna get too psychological into it just yet. So in my drawers I have some little containers. I don't have a ton, so some of those things end up getting mixed up, where you have like rubber bands in one, then like metal bits in the other. That's another interesting question. Again, like coming up with things just as we're talking here. How do we organize? You can organize by material. You know, put like metal things in one, like rubber stringy things in one, paper in another, metal. Organized by use. So like attacher things that keep things together. To be processed things. If you have receipts, you know, you probably would place you're eventually going to put them, but you haven't put them there. I have my own little receipt nook under here of stuff that I need to process for my business expenses. So I'm very aware of what's going on there. The writing cam is pulsing. I think it's going like in and out of focus. Old gum that you discover when you got the desk. Is this chewed gum or like fresh gum? The world needs to know. Ink spots by shape for a specific task. I'm seeing ink spots here, and I'm not. I don't know, Senior Watashi, if this is what you were talking about, but oh, this is cool actually. I'm instantly thinking of some sort of coded. Let's see if this is coming through. Yeah, sorry if the camera is a little bit wonky. I started up the stream and it was doing, I think I might need to update OBS, but hopefully we'll be able to work with it for this stream at least. I'm thinking of like a cool, almost like a Morse code, but like coded symbols for the different items, and maybe they could be completely abstract, or maybe they could be like attachers, you know, like rubber bands and string could have a symbol like that. And maybe you could put paper clips in there as well. And maybe for receipts or paper, you know, it could be a pile of things like this. I have this drawer. I looked into it today. I'm trying to remember exactly the kinds of things that, I have those clips, the snack clips, but they're like alien and monster faces and stuff, so snack clips. Mmm. That's one of the best things. Both gums can happen. Both chewed and unchewed. Oh my gosh. Imagine an old guy leaving the office and leaving a last message for the guy coming to take his place. And this is all in code with all the stuff he left behind. Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. I'm thinking here of a more generic desk organization thing, but I like that idea. So it's somebody else's ink drawer. Or ink drawer. Ink spots. We're talking about ink spots. Someone else's stuff. That could be a cool name for the game as well. So the idea for this, we're talking at first about junk drawers, organizing your own things, playing around with, you know, how we would categorize these things. But yeah, what if you have a drawer, newly assigned desk. So this is like if you're at school or at a job or something, and you get this new desk, it has a drawer in it. I don't even know if schools have drawers in desks anymore. I remember when I went to school, I'm pretty sure it was just like the flat thing, or it was just tables, or it was like the flat thing attached directly to the chair. But I like in this world, in this game universe that we're creating, you do have drawers, and you have a desk where people are swapping stuff around. So you come to your new desk, open up your drawer or filing cabinet, or whatever it is, and you see things in there. Oh man. So it would be cool. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit into this concept. What is the form factor of this desk going to be? It could be cards. It could be one card that's just a desk card with, like, you know, different stuff on it. It could be a few cards that form the inside of the desk, and that creates a little bit of randomization there. So maybe one card, you know, it's like this. One card has like the batteries on it. More string, got some rubber bands over here. And as Senior Watashi had mentioned, you can have different symbols or codes on them. So that's two potential form factors. Want to get real crazy though, like what if we have an actual box? So this makes me think of Shaky Manor, which I was just discussing with, I think it was Corey online a couple of days ago. But Shaky Manor has everything, has this tray with the different rooms in it, and it's got like snake bits and ghost bits, lots of really cool stuff. I'll draw a ghost bit here. I'm a ghost, woo! But it's got cool different shaped meeples and stuff. So what if you actually have, each person has their own box, and you have like rubber bands and paper clips. Ooh, shoot, the other one was Mafia. I'm gonna just put ink on my mouth. Mafia de Cuba or something, where you're actually picking out things from the box to get your secret rolls, and there's diamonds and roll cards and different things in the box. I'm gonna write Mafia Cuba because I forget the exact name of it. So there's a precedent for this, boxes with actual stuff that you're putting in here. So maybe as a player, you have an option, like a very visceral, physical thing, to put, and they could be the actual items. I don't know if you actually want to put batteries in there, but it could be tokens for a thing, at least for prototyping. For prototyping, you could even like have just different colored cubes and say that the different cubes are different things. So put things in drawer, pass drawer. Disable autofocus for the camera. Good call. I should do that because it does get a little wonky. Oh, so you had the school desks where you could like lift it up and have stuff in there. Oh, that's really cool, actually. I like the flavor for that. And I mean, I think I've definitely seen desks like that. I think for kids nowadays, like if you showed something like that to them, they'd be like, "Wow, this is an ancient relic." Ooh, yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, that is super cool. Someone else's stuff. So we have the school desk here. I'm gonna start typing in the notes. Fill a box with a bunch of stuff and pass it around. Someone else's stuff. You open the desk, there's stuff in there along with a code or puzzle. Ink spots. Old-fashioned school desk. What happened to the person before you? Storytelling. Okay. Okay. Cool. So there's a couple of different ways this could go from here. Either there's a randomization and you're trying to figure something out from random components, or each player has their own desk or box that you pass around, or again, simplification for that might eventually be what it ends up turning into, but keeping it simple, especially from a prototyping perspective. One player is the message passer and puts the stuff into there. The rest of the players, one or more players, opens the box and tries to deduce a story or figure out what happened to the person before them from the contents of their desk and potentially messages passed through code. Storytelling. Okay. One person creates the desk, puts stuff in the box, real stuff or tokens. Other players open it up and try to deduce what happened to that person based on stuff and code. Ancient relic. The ancient relic of the desk of the... See, now I'm not gonna do it right now, but I want to fall into a Wikipedia hole, like the evolution of the student desk, of how students keep and store their stuff. I think that could be really cool, and where in the world different students currently have different types of desks that they use. Battlefold, where the items are printed on a cloth board and you fold the board to make patterns. Oh, that sounds super cool. It's definitely up my alley. Battlefold. I'm gonna check that out. So this idea of folding, or paper folding, even like a cootie catcher. I remember somebody was pitching a game a while back that was made on a cootie catcher, which is super cool. Create a message to be discovered. Yeah. Cool. So the one question that comes to mind, this idea of if we are leaning into the ink spots and a code, what exactly does the code, and I love the idea of different doodles, different symbols, Ooh. Like, can I still do the drawing thing? Yes. So different doodles that have historical significance. Doodles with historical, because it's fascinating how students tend to pass down cultural knowledge, games, certain games that people play, certain methods of communication, and symbols are another thing that transpires through the student network. So if we're going to have the different symbols, are we going to have a codex? An individual thing like sleep, dream, fight, we're gonna have a codex where you can break down the symbols, or is it more interpretive? Ooh, I kind of like interpretive in like a Mysterium or Muse sense. Mysterium or Muse. So this idea that you're seeing things in the images, you're trying to communicate. So in Mysterium in particular, there's things that you're trying to figure out based on the clues. So instead of being a free-form story, and I'd mentioned in the beginning with the word puzzle search, there's answers. And that can be a more mechanical system than something that's based more around interpretation. So there's two different directions you could go with this. More of a story direction, and then potentially more of a, like, answers. Like, here's the list of answers. The person can put the objects and clues into the desk, and we're trying to figure out the answer. Story dice, yeah. Rorschach, oh my gosh. Like, are those, I wonder if those are, I'm sure you I think you spelled Rorschach here. Rorschach. Rorschach. Open source? Question mark? I wonder if those are public domain at this point, because that would be pretty cool. The decoder rings with codes. The decoder rings. I've never got to play with one myself. Decoder rings, yes. But that was like, you know, kind of letter for letter where you just rotate it. So you have all the individual thing. A is E, B is F, C is G. So you can have one for one or different types of codes where you can figure out the secret message. And the secret message was, oh, what was the one from A Christmas Story? It was like, drink more Ovaltine or something. It's like the harsh disappointments of childhood realities. Okay, so I like story games, and I like this idea that you can pass a box to someone with a random collection of things, and they could say, so how might this game play out? So you have your box here as the ghost or the previous tenant or whatever. Maybe you put in like 2 rubber bands, you put in a battery, you put in a little pencil nub, and then you have slots for 3 symbols here. So me and the rest of the people on my team would look at that and say, so what is a battery? You know, battery is energy, life, power. And we look at the rubber bands and think, ooh, there could be a code laid out. So it could be something form factor wise akin to Keep Talking and No One Explodes. You have an actual manual. Ooh, or what was the other one that I played with Davey on recently? I'll have to ask about that. But you have this whole book with numbers in there that you have to figure out. So each thing, instead of having an infinite possibility space, what a battery could mean, each item has 3 different interpretations that are listed. Rubber bands, flexible, ring, or like circular, cycle, I guess I might say. Cycle, because it's got that circular thing. And then like stretching the truth. Uncertain, because it doesn't have its own like prescribed shape, I'll say that. Flexible, cycle, and then symbols down here that are open to interpretation, like bullseye. I had the idea of the one for sleep or dream. So you might come up with these 4 things. Say if these 4 things were stuff that the player had put into the drawer. Alright, so we're trying to figure out what happened to this previous tenant. You know, they disappeared from the school. We're trying to leave a secret code in their desk for us to figure out. So they came up against someone who had a lot of power, maybe like a parent or like a bully or something. And they were uncertain about exactly how to deal with the situation. So down here we have the uncertainty. Here for the bullseye picture, say like this person with power was coming closer and closer to them over time, and then eventually they went to sleep forever. Eventually they died. Oh, this is kind of grim. Oh, sweet. The Rorschach images are public domain. Nice. That's actually super relevant information. I would love to. I don't know if there's been a lot of games that have used that as components, or at least like art or something. So that could be super cool. And I definitely recommend for you as a designer to check them out, because I think there's a lot of rich history there. I know there's been some debate about their actual use. There's the rich history of, you know, how they use them, images, interpretations. They diagnosed people based on the things they would see in these pictures, which can be good and bad. You know, there's a lot of stuff up to interpretation there, but definitely rich history and really cool imagery too. Cool. So we have some potential ideas floating around here, decoding things based on items. I'm going to come over here back to the written notes. I realize this is a little smaller than I want it to be. Bump it up so it's a little easier to see there. One person puts the stuff in there, different things. The person based on stuff and codes. Instead of pure storytelling, it could be more mechanical, with different items having set interpretations. Could have either lots of cards or a manual, or you had mentioned, I think it was Senior Watashi, having a foldable map thing. It would be cool to have it be either like a crumpled piece of paper or a piece of cloth that looked like crumpled paper, like something a kid would create with these different code words laid out onto it. Or a manual, or a big cloth map with all of the different interpretations being kind of laid out on it in different ways. I like the idea of using cloth or a mat of some sort as a component. I think Fall of Magic, Dragoon, and a lot of other games are kind of playing around with that. I think it's becoming more of a thing, and it could be a really cool physical component to add to stuff. Brad. Nice. Sweet. Okay, so let me draw that out, what we're thinking here. I like doing the drawing at the same time as coming up with the ideas, because it can help me to visualize and think about the different things that I'm working on. Apologies for the camera being a little wonky. It halved the actual size of the camera, so it's supposed to be same size as the video, my personal feed camera, but it's being a little weird right now. So bear with me, friends. So yeah, what if you have your like treasure map here? Or if you're a Harry Potter fan, like a Marauders map. But instead of having an actual map of locations on it, it can have breakdowns of all the different iconographies that are used in the game for a little bit of a decoder feel. Shoe or ice. It's going to be a lot bigger scale to fit everything on here. And in this case, instead of having it be everything broken down in a grid, which was something we started talking about at the beginning of the game, be more of a word search, or you'll be looking at the pictures trying to figure out where on this piece of paper the things are. So there's a little bit of puzzle search element to it, which is kind of cool. Sleep, dream, death. So you could have, for those of us, if you're just joining, for those of you who are just joining us here with the weekly game brainstorming and ideation, we came up with this idea of what do you find. Well, first it was organization. Everyone has a bits drawer. You're trying to take the stuff in your bits drawer, put them in the right place. What if instead of your bits drawer, this is someone else's drawer that you're just coming upon, has a lot of different stuff in it, and the stuff represents a code that you're trying to interpret. The code could be something that's generated by one of the players, and all the other players are trying to gather around and figure out what the code is about. So we had mentioned one player creating the drawer, and they could be looking at this map too while they're putting the things in there, and they could have either codes or little chits with the different symbols on them, and they could be putting a number of those into their box or drawer that they're handing to the other players so they could interpret that. So man, I kind of like this as like a DIY, like print and play idea too. It's like if you have something you can use as a box, or selling it potentially tokens and a box. Getting a little into productization here, but it can be fun to use that to figure out how you're going to put the game together. So you can use things from around your house, like go into your own junk drawer, go into your own junk drawer. Wow, that is surprisingly hard to say. And find things and put them into this box, either as red herrings, or I really like this idea of your friends trying to figure out the message that's in your drawer, and that you just hand them this box that has like 2 screws, a paper clip, a unchewed piece of gum, and then a bunch of these different symbols in there. And I suppose you could either have these same interpretations for the items that they're putting in there, or you can have that be more free form, or even have the actual physical artifacts that you put in there be for flavor. So what you're reading is this message, But along with the tokens that are put in there, you're going to have screws and thread and different things. Or, continuing along with that idea, you could actually have, you know, if you're including this box as one of the components, the inside artistically. So instead of having actual physical screws or paper clips that are going to be in here, you just have it illustrated. So, and we, again, coming back to more of the theme of this, the idea is you're a student who, back in the day of actual lift up your desktop and there's a drawer in there, you're opening this up, you're finding things in there, so it hasn't been completely cleared out, but there's a little bit of a code in there and you're trying to figure out what happened to the student before you based on this code. So artistically, there could be some little bits of string. If it is from that era, there might be things like jacks, marbles, and so something that's very, we could lean into the theme of this and make it very much about that era and what was happening, what student life was like for these ancient relic desks, as we mentioned in the chat. It sounds like a mastermind variant that uses ambiguous pictures instead of colors, yeah? Yeah, thank you so much for checking it out, Senior Watashi. Very happy to have your inspirations in the chat today. Thanks for hanging. Alright. I'm going to make some notes over here. Or big clock math with all of the different interpretations. I like to write this stuff down in digital format as I'm doing the sketching over here as well. I was actually going through some of my old prototypes today, and I found ones where I remember the idea of the game, but I just maybe have some half notes in a journal somewhere. I don't have notes written down where I could actually replay the prototype. So I'm like, oh, if I want to dig into this idea, I have to start the notes from scratch again. So writing notes right from the very beginning, this document can eventually become the rules, the written rules of the game. So, oh, we were saying, like Mastermind, but with symbols instead of colors. Storytelling, flavor, digging into the history of I wonder what that desk, of the lift top desk in schools. Reverberations, or like echoes of an era. So even if it does become more of a mechanical code decoding game, I like the idea that you'll embellish it. You know, you're talking about, you'll be able to win by coming up with the particular words. And maybe one last thing mechanically for some of these pieces, if you do have, I keep coming back to this symbol here. I had said that it was like sleep, dream, and death. If each of the different symbols has 3 potential possible interpretations, and then somehow based on the other objects in the box, you're trying to figure out which one it is here. Ooh, decrypto, actually. This is touching a little bit on what they're doing with decrypto, which has some really cool decoding, limited communication things to it. So definitely worth checking out if you like this kind of game. Alright. Decrypto, right. So potentially, mechanically, if we want there to be an actual solution or answer based on the other stuff in the box, you could find a solution to, oh, this one, it could have been either any of these 3 options, but I figured out based on what else is in there that it's going to be the first one. So it's about sleeping. As to opposed to a more narrative structure where you can pick any of these, say like, oh, I dreamed of a dance with frogs, as opposed to like death by fighting a chair. Alright. Cool. So it looks like we're in a pretty good place for a concept, for this game design concept. I think there's still a lot of stuff open with this particular idea, particularly whether we want to go more in a storytelling narrative direction or if we want to focus in on making it be really mechanical and that you're trying to decode. So that's, I'm going to make a note of that because that's interesting. Decoding versus interpretation. So there's one idea of a game where there are specific answers. As the clue giver, you're trying to get the people to come up with the exact answers, and there's more of a narrative storytelling thing where you're giving them the items and trying to have them come up with something adjacent, or like more of a telephone game, right? Where it's funnier if they come up with things that aren't exactly what you're trying to say. So your original message, like I said, is like, I sleep, or I dream of dancing frogs. And based on the things that you give to them, they come up with, I died fighting a chair. And that can be, either one can be fun, but it's two pretty different directions for this game design concept to go into. So I think we're in a pretty good place for this design concept. Ooh. Which reminds me, I've been posting the stuff and the information. I made a page on my website where you can see more of the videos and all the stuff that I'm collecting. I'm going to be posting some of these notes on there as well if you're interested in digging back and seeing some of the things that we have come up with. I'm going to try something a little new with today's stream. So I think that's a good place for the concept. I've had people asking me about live prototyping, some of the games that I'm concepting. I'm not going to dig into someone else's stuff yet because I like to think a little bit about how I'm going to structure something. I don't want people to come in completely blind and watch as I fumble around trying to figure out exactly the form factor of a game. But we were talking last week about Star Academy Kindergarten and a bunch of ideas of mini games that came out of that, and I have an idea for something for one of the mini games, specifically the alien communication one that I wanted to play around with, and that's something that I can do here on camera. So going to play around a little bit with OBS, see if I can figure out this camera thing, but then I'm going to be back and doing some prototyping mainly in Photoshop. But I should be able to print out and get those into actual cards because I think that would be really fun to see. So I'm going to turn off the stream for a moment to see what I can do with this camera and then be right back. So if you bear with me here, hold on and I'll be back. And if not, if you want to tap out now, that's totally cool. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you have enjoyed this game design stream. Hope to see you next week. There's also a hand card. I am tuning out, but this is Brad. That's a really cool idea of building the code over time. So I'm going to write that down so I don't lose it. Here's could have items on cards. Build the code over time by adding cards secretly to the box. Perfect. Cool. I'll be back.